of HR and OD, for those of you that I don't know. Welcome to this afternoon's report out. Wow, we've got a great agenda. Where's Claire? Where's she gone? She's just gone out. So we've got Yvette's on holiday, Julian's out of the organisation, and we've got Lisa Grant, our chief nurse, watching in remotely. So I think, Claire, Lisa was hoping that she might text you if she's got any questions. Is that okay? Perfect. So can we give Lisa a wave? So first up, we've got the ophthalmology outpatient Kaizen event, which was been led by Deb Hall. We had that lovely report out at the end of the event that was brilliant, and this is 30 days, isn't it? So over to you.
So hello, my name is Deborah Hall. I'm doing the 30-day report out for the ophthalmology outpatient Kaizen event. To refresh memories for those that weren't here, we decided to look back at clinic check-in and also clinic setup and reduction in the outpatient department. Both of those were done as part of value streams back in 2017, and we felt it was worth going back to have a look and see how we could perhaps further improve things or embed some of the practices. And part of that as well, we'd had some changes in the department, so there's a change of clinical leadership, and one of the changes that we'd also made was that initially patients who attended for clinic opened at 8:30 to patients, but staff work from 8 a.m. and we made a move because literally patients queue down the wall down to A&E and waiting for those doors to open because people arrive early or their transport brings them early, and we agreed to open the doors at 8:15, but in opening the doors at 8:15, if they use the self-check-in, their notes were prepared and they were ready to go, but if not, then the reception staff were quite rightly still doing a lot of their admin work and some of the catch-up from the clinic the night before. So patients were asked to then check in at 8:30 a.m, which means them kind of standing up a stampede, and they were literally watching the staff doing their work, waiting for that signal, which we felt was batching and actually perhaps was counterproductive. So when we did the first piece of work, our lead time was 90 minutes from people arriving and then being seen, depending on where you did your measure. If we did it from kind of the 8:15 to 8:35 slot, that's how it worked. If they'd self-checked in, we were looking at kind of a 5 or so minute gap before they were seen. In terms of the environment, we think there is still work to be done on the sorting. We were at level 1 when we started, and to some degree we're still at level 1, but we've got the new leadership in there and we're trying to improve and pull things out of rooms and clinics that we don't need to be in there. And then the setup reduction time, in order to prepare, there is at least 15 rooms in use on a morning. We're looking at 180 patients in a session quite often, that it was taking 45 minutes, but the team felt that if they pull some of that work back to the evening before, potentially we could make some gains, and our sponsor very kindly set them a challenge of 9 minutes or less for that full setup. And as we worked through that, we did achieve some of that. So in terms of the setup, we pulled that back to being 74% improved in the time. We managed to get it down to 15 minutes. And in terms of that reception and open time, we achieved 5 minutes from the patients checking in to having the vision done. And there's just some examples of the work the team have done as we've progressed. So that was like the original allocation board that's in the front of clinic, which as we did the Kaizen, they changed to the beginnings of a production board. And now this is the latest version where we've actually got the agenda for the huddles at 8 a.m. there for the teams. We've got a column that tells people if equipment's been reported as not working and when it was done, the requisition number. So there's some follow-on because the staff work at Seacroft and St James's. So quite often those messages are difficult to pass on. And then we've got the staff allocation. And at the top of the board, you can see that we've got the consultant's name and kind of the clocks, and I'll speak a little bit more about that as we go through. And we asked the medical staff if they would check in, not necessarily to monitor the time they arrive, but actually it was their idea to put the time that they arrive and then the time they're ready, because they all have slightly different practices. Some of them like to electronically look at the patients they're seeing first. Some of them would go behind the admin desk and spend time going through notes. So certainly when we did our initial work, we found that one particular doctor arrived on time. He was in clinic at 8:30, but by the time he'd done his prep, he was 25 minutes behind for seeing his first patient, but he was prepared for the clinic. So that's a challenge for the way of working, but also knowing who you're seeing, because patients complain if the doctor doesn't seem to know why they're there. So it's a bit of a juggling act, shall we say. So our latest progress, I think the most amazing progress we've made, and certainly from a patient experience perspective, is from the check-in. When we did the Kaizen event, the receptionist Lynn, who was with us as part of the team, suggested one of their team could be outside helping patients to self-check-in to try and improve the number and the flow from that perspective. And on the days we did some of that, we were a bit challenged because the self-check-in didn't always work, but actually it was taking a member of staff away from that work. Since that time, the team have agreed that actually let's try it and see what it's like, seeing the patients in flow. So now the doors are actually opening sometimes at 2-3 minutes after 8, whether there's patients there or not, and they're checking people in flow at the actual desk. And the reports we've had back from the admin team is actually that does feel generally better. They've also managed to recruit more volunteers, so we're still trying to encourage and empower those that can to self-check-in, because it's really important that people can do that if they can. But that's made a huge difference for the patients from that patient experience perspective. And then from our side, the patients are ready when we're ready. So we've managed to get that lead time down from them arriving to the first vision, 3 minutes now. So more or less as they're checking in and people are pulling the notes, familiarising themselves, we've had evidence of 3 minutes. It's fair to say on average it's still around 5 minutes, but that still is much better than it was. And in terms of the clinic setup, they've pulled the time back in having the vision rooms ready. We can see that. But there is so much setup still to do for all the other rooms to be ready. But we've shaved another minute off it. And there are jobs now that are distinctly allocated to the night before. So overall, we're working on it. The bit where we haven't had as much success, but we have some plans to improve, is the doctors and optometry teams checking in when they've arrived and when they're ready. There are 27 ophthalmology consultants and associated teams. So actually we did say at the initial event, it might take us beyond 30 days to get the message to every one of them, because some of them spend a lot of time at Seacroft or theatre. And Charlene, who was the medical representative, has presented at audit, but it's taking some time to embed. But we're in the process of appointing what we would call a ward clerk, but for clinic. And when she's in post, or he, the idea is that they will encourage that check-in so that we're ready, because we did discuss with Yvette, ultimately we might say, well, if you've not said you're here and you've not said you're ready, we might not bring you any patients, because we may prioritise who we vision as to who's ready first, rather than just taking 3 people through as a batch. But I think it will take some time to see that change. So as The key learns, some changes are quickly adapted, others require a bit more time with good engagement, but hopefully we've got plans to embed that in future. And the huddle, the agenda for the huddle, one of our new band sevens has come from specialty medicine, so she's brought some of her learning from ward huddles to bring some different dynamics to how we run the huddle. In terms of attendance, admin and nursing and also ophthalmology admin are attending, so again we know quicker if a doctor's off sick or if there's been a change in clinic, because again those things happen, but it was taking a long time to find some of that out sometimes, so that's better. And that's our 30-day report out. Thank you.
We'll take some questions at the end, but I just wanted to take, as executive sponsor for this, I wanted to sort of break out of process a little bit and just share with you something that you shared with me, so I don't know whether you're familiar with the area that Deborah's talking about, but when she talks about the doors opening into clinic, apparently, I have got this right, I think, apparently there used to be a sign on the wall in front of the closed door that said to patients, please queue along this corridor, and it's still there. So we're trying to, in terms of patient experience and the messages we give to people, which is, could you please stand in this corridor in front of this closed door, for many of our patients that are got poor sight, you sort of, I might come along with a screwdriver and just take it down, if I'm honest. So I just thought I'd share that nugget with you, because there's some brilliant stuff in there, but there's some still really important symbols around us that is counter to the things that we're trying to do with this method, isn't it? So hold on to your questions and your thoughts around that one, because we've got another 30-day report out, and it's from our value stream that is doing a grand job of working across the CSUs. Is it just Crystal yourself that is it? Are you on your own today?
Yes.
Okay, so Crystal, come on up and tell us how you're getting on with the critical care and the neurosciences step down value stream, and this is your 30-day report out after your RPIW7, isn't it, which was about scheduling.
Thanks. Does this count as more 7 minutes?
Definitely not, no.
Okay, just thought I'd ask.
It's not part of your lead time, don't worry.
No, okay, never mind. Thank you. Hi, I'm Crystal. I'm Business Manager for Spinal Surgery. So we've been working on RPIW on elective surgery, and there's a lot going on here and there's a lot of things that we need to try and sort out, but the ultimate aim is to have a very efficient scheduling service and then make sure we've got the bed base right on the day, because at the moment we're scheduling at short notice, and actually when we get into the day we don't have the correct bed, which is causing our patients problems and it's causing us a lot of problems as well. So for 30 days we've actually done okay in terms of sort of lead times and things like that. We've seen some significant sort of drops in things. So our lead time is when we get the booking form to when we actually get our patient on TMS. So that's dropped by 52%. So this equation here, we've got a lot of long waiters in spines, for those of you that don't know. So this can go up and down depending on which patient that you're measuring. So while we've got a fall here and that looks really good, that could very well go up next time depending on who we're measuring. However, we're going to take that as a win, and that's 52% down at 30 days. So we'll go for that. Staff walking distance. We, at the moment, a couple of weeks ago, the theatre scheduling staff were spending a lot of time going to pre-assessment backwards and forwards, collecting notes, collecting packs. We've managed to implement a production board, which means that that's planned now. So we only need to go to pre-assessment once a day. Now, that's not only good for us, but it's also good for pre-assessment because they're not getting interrupted constantly when we're going in and out. Another green bit on there is the quality defects for the patients not, sorry, can't quite see that. Phone calls not answered. So the previous way we were scheduling patients we were ringing them, and we were ringing them and saying, can you come in on X a day? 65% of patients were not answering the phone call. So that was meaning that we were having to leave the work unfinished for a large amount of time while we were trying to get hold of these patients. We've now swapped that to sending a letter saying this is the date that we're going to be booking you in, and we've taken up a 7-day phone call. We're ringing them 7 days before and we're saying, are you available to come in for your surgery? The majority of those are. As you can see, we've only got 3 people that we've managed to do a 7-day phone call on there because we're still in the process of working that out. However, it's dropped 49%, but we'll be able to report a little bit more at the 60 days. We have also got, for the quality defect, patients offered a date that's not acceptable. That's come down by 80%. So we've only had 3 patients out of the 18 patients that we've fixed booked ringing us back and saying, actually, that date isn't good for us. Now, this is going to be very closely linked to the fact that the fixed booking process has to be 3 weeks out. So we're giving them enough notice to actually get the planned childcare work sorted. Whereas before we were ringing them and saying, are you free next week to come in for your surgery? And getting a no. So again, that's come down 80%, which is good. There's a couple of things that we've not managed to collect data for quite yet. We are looking at making sure we've got a minimum data set on TMS so that when the theatre staff come to operate on that patient, we've got enough information to get them into the right bed, to make sure we've got the right equipment. The first patient that we've put that minimum data set on has gone through today, so it's a little bit too early to sort of give you any information on that. However, nobody's phoned me to complain this morning, so I'm going to take that as a win as well. We're just waiting for some more stuff on the bed levels as well to come back, so we'll give you a bit more information at 60 days. But at the moment, performance-wise, that's going okay. Just to give you a bit of insight for our progress, we have got our first proper fixed booking list going ahead next week. I think it's Tuesday or Wednesday. So that's just a little snippet from our Excel sheet. So hopefully everybody's going to show up. One of the issues that we've got with fixed booking is we don't know if people are going to DNA. Now, all of these patients here have been sent the letter. They've been having the 7-day phone call. We need to make sure they show up on the day, and I think that's a bit of a risk there. There's a little bit of the production board as well that we've made up. It goes through how the staff are feeling on that day, which is really, really important. They can either be black, red, orange or green. We have got how many weeks ahead we are scheduled out. We're trying to be 80% over 3 weeks. We're not there yet, and it could be another 6 weeks before we get there on a solid performance basis. We've also got on there who's doing what every day of the week, so we can plan when we're going to be going to pre-assessment. We can plan who's going to get the notes ready for MDT. We know what's happening. We've also as well, we've started receiving thank you cards from patients, which is not something we've ever had before. The team have had some lovely chocolates delivered as well. Couldn't take a picture of them because the gannets have eaten them. But actually, that's going well so far. We've also on the production board got how long our patients are waiting to see each consultant. So as soon as a patient rings and says, how long am I going to be waiting, we can look up at that board and we can say, for example, Mr. Gummerson, his longest wait is 97 weeks or whatever. So that's our progress so far. Morale's really important to us in the theatre scheduling team, and these guys have been absolutely working so hard. They first came to us about 6 months ago when we put the theatre scheduling team in, and they were in quite a bad place, to be honest, when we did the RPIW, but they're now, look, they're smiling. So hopefully at 60 days they'll sort of be jumping off desks and things and being really happy. But this is the team with the MDT trolley, and they're prepared, they're ready. Gabe never smiles, so it's nice to see him smiling. So actually we're in a better place, but we're still not there quite yet. We've got a lot of stuff to do on the newspaper. A lot of the last 30 days has just been about putting the processes in place. We've got standardisation of clinician documents to come, so we've got some clinicians will say that a consent lasts 3 months, some will say, well, actually it lasts 6 months, and we've got to get them to work on that and just come together and just give us one sample, really. We need to complete, on PAS we've got an area where you can update patients as short notice. We now need to be making sure that that is updated because it's not actually a function we've used before. Once we've updated it on PAS, we need to make sure those patients are ready to go. And then if we have any DNAs on the day or short notice cancellations, we ring that cohort of patients and we get them in. And that's just making sure we cover for anything that might go wrong in the background. What have we got next? A couple of months ago, we decided that the current assistant patient services coordinator was doing a little bit too much, so we've divided that. One's going to look after outpatients, is going to look after inpatients. Santino starts next week, lucky Santino, and we've got lots planned for him, but he's going to provide leadership and consistency within the theatre scheduling team, because previously they've had all of us trying to go down to help, and I'm not sure that it's particularly helped, so that's going to be great for them. We're going to have to monitor those DNA rates, and we're looking at introducing KPIs. So the first one I'm probably going to introduce with Santino's help is making sure we've got 80% of those lists filled for the next few weeks. The reason we've gone for 80% is we do actually do more urgent work, so we've got high grades that we need to accommodate for, which we can book a couple of days out. So 80% is quite a fair goal to go for, really. The production board, it's up and running. Our Holly is the one that drives that. If Holly's not in, probably doesn't get done. So we just need to make sure that we're embedding using that. And again, once we've got Santino in place, he'll be making sure that's done. At 60 days, as I said, we can look at the bed levels and we can look at the information that we're going to be putting on TMS and get some feedback around that. And we probably need to be looking at introducing some further metrics. Again, that can relate to whether or not we're using the production board or whether or not we're updating everything that we need on TMS. We've had a few barriers. I think we've probably tried to do too much at once. Although I'm happy with progress, we weren't quite where I'd planned to get it. I'm okay with that. Staff group engagement and support, it's difficult. But in our CSU, any of you that know spines will know we've got a lot going on. Trying to get people to buy into, we're doing this, I'm doing this, it's really difficult. And some of the staff groups don't quite understand what's going on in terms of administration processes, so that's the difficulty, I think, for us. And that's it.
Brilliant. Well done. So, I loved how understated that was. Performance is okay. I think you've done brilliantly. Really, really well done. So, lovely part of the agenda today are the awarding of our certificates for those that have completed some really important education. So, Nabila, do you want to come up and are you going to share a little bit about your learning from having completed your advanced lean training certificate? So do you want to come on up and do that, share that learning first, and then we'll present certificates afterwards. Over to you.
How do you do the next slide?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm assuming.
Is it just swiping across?
No, I think there's the keyboard in the drawer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, just the
Thank you. Okay, hi everyone. My name's Nabila Anjum and I work in the histopathology department. Our histopathology department is quite large. It's made up of 4 different areas. So at the start we found it difficult to kind of think of where to start. You first have your specimen reception, where your specimens come in. We deal with specimens from GP surgeries, from surgical wards, from the surgeries, and we get autopsies as well that come in through a specimen reception, get booked in, get moved onto the cut-up area where they're dealt with, cut up by the pathologist. Then they get sent into another area where they get processed. Basically what that means is a bit of human tissue is then cooked through different machines so it's safer for us to further deal with. Then it's taken into the main lab where the initial investigations are carried out, initial work on it. After that main lab area, the work gets sent to the histopathologist and they can give out their preliminary reports. If they need any further work, that's where I come in and they come to the further work area. In further work area, we deal with immunohistochemistry, We deal with something called specials, where we use different staining techniques to bring up things like leprosy and TB. We also deal with molecular genetics, where we prepare the slides for genetics now. We also deal with cytology cases as well. So it's quite heavy-handed. We need a lot of staff, particularly in that area. But at the moment, during this whole thing, I realised how, because it's so short-staffed as well, and we've got genetics moving in, it was just a little bit difficult to carry out the work, but I kind of got there eventually. The things I learnt when doing this work, when I first went in for this course, I thought, oh no, here we go again, because we've done things like 5S, and they lasted a few months, and then it just dropped because, again, staffing levels and work pressures, you don't keep up to things like that. But as I was doing the course, I got back into it, and it was so interesting, and you wanted to get the work done. Through that course, I learned the absolute importance of observing and listening. So observing your work area and actually listening to the people on the Gemba. How respectful behaviours pave the way for open-mindedness. If you're dealing with a person respectfully, they're more likely to be open to your ideas. The smallest of changes can make a big difference to the way we work, and I will kind of give an example of that in my next slide. Involving the staff with lean work and using their ideas helps people accept the changes better. We did have people ask me when I started doing my work, well, what's the point? We did it before, it doesn't work, why are you doing it again? So you just take that time out to explain to them. Through the course, we realised why those things didn't work. We didn't keep on top of them. And because of staffing issues, things just got pushed back. But once they started understanding that, they were really helpful in helping me get my work done and get the homeworks done as well. And perseverance pays off. So, yeah. So the first one, when I said little things matter, the main thing here was an incubator that we keep our glass slides in, which is kind of here. That was at the end of a bench where, I'll show you on this actually, you can probably see clearer. So this incubator here was quite a few meters away from where we were actually needed it. And that was just a small thing to do with me moving that incubator. It caused less footsteps as well. And you were taking hot metal racks out of there, transferring them all the way across the bench to the other side. Now that got moved to the area here. All we had to do was open the door, take the slides out and put them down there. Again, you're saving people from getting burnt and dropping the cases on the floor as well. So something just as simple as that. And in that way, you're being respectful to the people. Before doing this course, it's been years that we have been doing this, just walking backwards and forwards, getting our hands burnt. It just took me, 2 minutes to ask somebody to move that, and it was fine. So, and on top of that, I managed to get a little silicone glove as well, which helps. So. Respectful. My Kanban one, which helped us a lot, we found we need samples, control samples that we've put with our tests with known positives. Like for TB, if we know a specimen has a TB, and when we do our test, we compare it to the control. If the control's positive, that means our test has worked, and we can pass it on to the pathologist to report. We were getting stuck in their immunos. They use a lot of controls. They have a control per slide. We were using like over 1,000 slides a day, and we were running out. Again, staff shortages meant that it was hard for us. We have things, glass slides that would put tissue pieces on. These different numbers are the actual control slides, but they were never getting topped up because short-staffed, nobody was getting down to actually fill these boxes up. So that's where I created 3 different Kanbans. A long one to put in with the slides. Had a pink one. This is paraffin blocks that we have specimens blocked into for known positives. And then we had another one where we needed to tell our next senior up that those blocks need making as well, because we kept on falling behind on there. there were days where we'd go 2 days without having any controls. So whoever was doing the initial testing had to cut the controls first and then do their own work, which was wasting a lot of time. That helped save time. It was a simple Kanban thing. My other one that I wanted to show was setup reduction. So when I looked at, the area that I looked at was molecular requesting for genetics. And altogether, only one person was working in that area. When we first started, we didn't get enough, that many samples, so we were okay. But that's kind of gone up by, I think they were saying nearly 3,000% in samples, but we still just got one person cutting them. So when I went through the process of that, that's what I wanted to look at. It took 41 minutes and 20 seconds to complete one set. So, sorry, I'm walking backwards and forwards here.
So impressed, and you
Sorry.
stay in the middle. Go on.
Okay, thank you.
Tell me when. Now?
Now, please. So when I was looking at the setup production, looking at 5 different steps altogether, but when you place them in different areas, processing time, that definitely needs to be done by the person there. Internal setup and the first picking up the request has to be done by that person in molecular. But when you went through it, there were 3 steps that could have been moved out that they didn't really have to do. That could have been done by somebody else. Next, please. Oops, missed one, I think.
Oh, see. Is that it?
Oh, it's just because I can't see the bottom. Sorry, guys.
Don't worry.
So overall, from that 41 minutes and 20 seconds, we've just knocked back about 36 minutes of our time. So giving our processing time 4 minutes, just over, 4.5 minutes really. So that was a big change that I saw then. That just, like I said, the importance of observation.
Next one.
Yes, please. And we've always finished with the Virginia Mason production system house, so I thought I'd put it back in there for a little refresher to everybody else. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I love that. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. That was absolutely brilliant. And I'm sure, so think about those questions and comments you've got for Nabila. But delighted, absolutely delighted to be able to give you your advanced lean training certificate. And
Thank
that was a
you.
brilliant report out. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Well
Thank you,
done.
guys.
So we've got another advanced lean training certificate, and that's for Gillian Hodgson, our head or deputy director of infection and prevention control. Well done,
Thank you.
Well done. There you go. Well
That's
done.
wonderful. Thank you
Brilliant.
so much. Thank you.
Very, very well done.
Thank you.
Brilliant. And have a think. Have a
feedback?
think. Yeah, just a few thoughts.
Yeah. So, hello, my name's Gillian. I know most of you know me, but I don't know if you perhaps had thought about how many investigations we help clinical areas look at in a year. But what I did was use the tools and methodologies to explore how we could add value for the patient in learning the lessons. Last year, we helped teams conduct over 500 investigations into patients that acquired an infection in our care, which is quite a considerable volume. And so we wanted to look at how we changed the defect into something that was adding value, and we made quite a lot of reductions there. I'm really, really fortunate in that the majority of my team have conducted some part of advanced, of lean training, and some are engaging with more training. So it means that some of the challenges we have around concepts and understanding and that time taken and flexibility to allow people to move in their journey, I've already got it already in the team, so I don't always have the same complexities that you were sharing about how long it takes to have the conversation. I do still find though that constant leadership is required with all the tools. It's never a job done.
Yeah.
And we all make a constant attempt for continuous change. Visual management is hugely valuable, but it's the constant leadership with that visual management that makes transformational change happen, not just having a lovely Kanban.
Fabulous. Well done.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And then we've got some Lean for Leaders. So will you all come up together? Probably is easiest. So Robert Colbeck from our medical physics. Where's Robert? Brilliant. James Evans, our matron in adult quick care. Is he here? No? James Evans? He's in London. Shall I take it to him then? Not to London. When he's back in the trust, I'll pop that one over to him. Okay, I will do that. Mike Harvey. And Yvette Rees from Infection Control again. Let me give you these. So Robert, well done. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm part way through this, so I am in awe of those that have managed to do this. Because this is absolutely brilliant. And Yvette, brilliant. Well done, you. Fabulous. Well done. Brilliant, brilliant. So I suspect colleagues might have questions for you. I'm on module 3's homework, so any advice that you can give me is very much appreciated. But well done, well done. So then, this is the opportunity to open it up to you. Thoughts, comments, questions for either those that have reported out or received certificates, Rob?
So for Crystal, so it's great to see the work that's going on in Sheffield and Europe. Really exciting to see some of the improvements you've already made. Obviously you're looking now at what else you want to look at going out, and I was kind of thinking through your process, and we always talk in the Leeds Improved method of, inch wide, mile deep, but actually some of the KPIs that you're going to start impacting on are so far away from where your team are. So I think we need to be looking at number of list order changes in Euro, number of patients cancelled for non-clinical reasons in Euro, because I'm absolutely positive that the work you're doing, because it is so important, will absolutely impact on those. And it'll make my theatre teams as happy as your admin teams are as well. So I think there's some real good stuff that I'm happy to work with you to look at in terms of how we do that.
Wow, that's really, and I think that's not an often conversation that I've heard in report out so far about the impact in one area and us capturing and recognising the impact in another.
Well, I think this one in particular is such a building block to the success of our patient having their elective operation. So really anyone who's involved in their care all the way then through pre-assessments, anaesthetist, surgeon, theatre team, and even on to post-op, they're going to see the benefit of having that right patient treated at the right time with all the correct information, no waste, no defect. So I think it's fabulous. Can't wait to see even more of the results you're going to see you can produce.
Great point, really, really helpful. Claire?
So a couple for me. So the first one around the outpatient piece, and just reflecting as we really start advancing towards our aspiration of building the Leeds way, and how we manage our patients through the outpatient departments. There's a lot of learning, I think, Deborah, that we can take from that. Have you seen have you had thoughts about how you can apply some of that learning in other areas as well?
Yes, well, Karen Ledgard is part of it, so they're looking at how they can show them going to come across and see some of the huddles and the setup work, so we've already discussed that, so we should see some spread.
And then a question for Nabila and May as well. So what next?
What next? Well, get more staffing up. But no, one thing I did realise in our department, there is 3 sets of kind of people that work together. You've got the admin people, the secretaries, you've got the lab staff, and then you've got the pathologists. What I would like to do, or have one of the pathologists do, is 5S how they work. Because it's very hard for us to put our initial stuff in and say we're working this way. We're still getting input from pathologists in different ways. We have 2 sets of quiet times, an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the afternoon, where nobody is allowed to interrupt us in our work. But we still have those interruptions from the pathologists, and one pathologist will do his work one way, another pathologist will do it another way, and it's hard to kind of get them to do it at the kind of the same way, really.
Yeah.
So I'd love to do something like that to standardise their working way.
Do you feel empowered to be able to do that in the current?
Empowered as in this course has given me a lot more confidence, and I have started to put my ideas forward better and to stand up for what we need in the lab. So I think I'm kind of talking to the pathologist, I'll probably be part way there. So, yeah.
Great. And I loved that you kept weaving the respectful behaviours back into the actions. I thought that was
That's the main thing on this course that kind of shouted out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Morale and everything in our department is quite low, and you often get little arguments as well, and just with a bit of respectfulness, the way you talk to a person. Not every person is the same. You won't get the two people who've got the same personalities there. You've got to have different ways of talking to them.
Yeah.
If you talk to them patronisingly or without any paying attention, you're going to get a negative impact from them in return.
Yeah.
So it's the way you talk to your staff members as well
Yeah.
that will help. If you explain things to them, bring yourself. If I've got to explain to someone they've made a mistake, I won't say you've done this wrong. I say, look, I've done it so many times as well. Easy mistake because of this. Instead of going to them and saying you've made a mistake, what were you doing?
Yeah.
It's just simple things like that. That's the main thing in this course that actually stuck out to me, that if we started talking better to the staff, listening to their ideas, putting what they want into our work, then we would have a kind of a happier workplace. So.
Well, and I loved when you moved the two things closer together, that your reason for doing that was out of respect for colleagues, not some other reason. So
You were just walking backwards and forwards, holding
this
hot equipment, burning yourselves and trying not to drop specimens on the floor. So it's just a simple move.
Yeah, no, really, really good. Claire, are you saying?
I've got a Lisa question.
You've got a Lisa question, okay.
Oh, sorry. So this is a question for Deborah from Lisa. I think the work that's been done to improve patient experience is fantastic. Do we tell patients in their letters about the checking-in process? Has there been any negative feedback from patients from this process?
So I'll answer the last question first. No, the patients are very happy to enter in that way, and a lot of patients do come back more than once, so a lot of them can see the difference in having stood against the wall and now being not only allowed in but checking in.
Stood against the wall.
Yeah. And in terms of the letters tell people how long they will wait. I'm not sure that it says about self-checking.
Okay.
Somebody in admin might be able to help me with that one. Patient leaflet, but our patients can't see. Yeah.
Okay, good question, Lisa, by the sounds of it.
So they may not read it well enough in advance.
Yeah, okay. Nice question, Lisa, thank you. You're pointing that way. I've got a couple of hands. Phil, did you want to follow on from that, or is it a different question?
It's a different question.
Okay. Anybody else following on from that, so I don't cut that off? No? Okay, go on.
Well, I mean, just say they've all been fantastic reporters again, haven't they? And just the passion that individual people are putting across. I mean, having worked in pathology before and been around, I think it's just great to hear about that kind of stuff, really. And some of those so many of these pieces of work have kind of unlocked things that people have been banging their heads against the wall for years about. It's just so really good to have the tools to do that. My actual question was for Deborah, which was just, what do you think what was hard about the 5S? Because you've made a real impact with your lead time and the other measures, but you couldn't quite unlock the 5S just at this stage. What do you think, looking back on that now?
I think what it is, we're identifying it. We've got, so in some of the rooms, we've got photographs of what should be on the trolley and how it's set up. We did do quite a bit of work when we moved out from having pre-assessment in the department, so we did actually do some of that 5S work there because we lost some storage, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. But actually measuring it, we wanted to focus more on that patient experience side to begin with, so it wasn't a key focus of the actual event, to be fair.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we're not doing it, but it wasn't something that we focused on.
Right, okay.
Okay. Steve?
It was just, thanks very much. It's just that those who completed the advanced lead training, because we're getting quite a lot of interest in people who do that particular programme, and it's the bit that I'm interested in is how confident are you to teach the whole principles and methods to others, you know, to be a real agent for change rather than doing the actual leadership bit yourself? Do you see what I mean? Has it given you a whole bunch of skills to teach it?
I think it has. I think what helped the most, although at that time we did complain a lot, were the teach backs. So, because it was at that point, I think a lot of us understood the concepts more because we had to teach them back.
Yes.
And at that point, there were a couple of things there which just suddenly clicked for me. So, I think I mentioned that when we finished our course as well. Although we did complain, it is hard work to get those done. They do help and they do give you that confidence. And especially when you're presenting in a group and you have their ideas as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, the methodology is really clever because everybody's got to report back on the 12 methods. So depending on the size of your group, you hear that 10 times or 25 times. And obviously on each occasion you're learning, because every single person that's reporting back on each of the methods has got something else that's been new to them. So I think it's the first time I think that I've completed a course. It is quite a stressful process because you have to stand up with all your peers and report out on every single tool that you've used in the method. And of course sometimes it works and sometimes it hasn't worked that well. But the reinforcement of being able to learn that is really quite powerful. The next question is interesting. I'm just at the stage of rolling out all those teach backs with my team.
Yeah.
So I think in a few months' time I'll ask them that question and then answer you.
Okay.
Because it'll be interesting to know what their perception is of me reporting back my learning through that process.
Yeah.
I always thought it would be a good idea to have an actual KPO representative from one of the people who've actually done the Lean course for the department.
Yeah.
So because you get so short of time and it's hard and all the 5S balls by the way, it'd be nice to have that one person that's always in touch with the KPO office that can help get all the workplace kind of working better. So any people from those departments, I think there's about 3 of us from us, if one of us was made like a KPO representative for that department, you've got someone constantly there trying to push those theories through.
That was a brilliant presentation. I was really inspired by your production board, and I'd like to know kind of how your team find that and how it can be translated into clinical board areas. Obviously, we're looking at data management and how we can look at that in all of our board areas with neurosciences, certainly around elective and acute flow. So I just wondered if there was any learning how we could perhaps translate some of that into neuro for yourself.
I think we had the bare bones of that, just literally what's happening and who's working on the day, but that work enabled them that free time to think of what do we really need to communicate, what frustrates in the day, so like equipment broke and not knowing what's happening with people repeating processes. But I have to say the team have built it up themselves, certainly through the Kaizen event. The medical representative Charlene was really keen to produce that and covered it all in herself. The huddle list has been generated by the staff, so you do need some enthusiasm to get it going, but for the team to decide what's important for them and what will make their day different and what you actually need to know. That's probably, but you're welcome to come and see it in action if you want.
And then a question for Crystal. Rob's a sponsor, and both Steve and Rob are both watching live because they don't actually come today. So
Okay,
just to
thank you for sharing.
I mean, well done, Crystal, again, a really, really good presentation. I think I just wanted to, because we recognise that spines are such a pressurised service, I really wanted to understand the impact that the methodology and the archiving process is having on the scheduling team. You kind of touched on it in the presentation. How do the team feel in 30 days?
I think they're in a much better position. When Natasha first came and visited us and we were like, oh, can we do a project? It was like, oh, really? But now when you look at them, they're actually engaged. I think that there is a future state that we can get to. anything you ask them to do, they're up for doing. So yeah, they're really seeing the positives of it. They know it's going to be a bit of a longer journey than where we're at now, but yeah, the morale's getting much, much better, and they're really driving that themselves.
And I think there's some key messages that we need to show wide in CSU, so the whole CSU understands the impact, the positive outcomes.
Absolutely. One of the difficult things is getting all staff groups to engage with that and understand that change does take time. We've all got to invest in that. It's not just on an administration team, it's on every staff group to do that.
I mean, I love that that's a recurring theme. So, first of all, I'm really liking that I'm watching some of our sponsors set the target out there and everybody's going that's close to it. Well, we're not going to do that. And then you stand up here at the end of a Kaizen event or a RPIW and sometimes you've smashed it. So I love that we're building the confidence that says, although we're stepping into a new value stream, we're not entirely sure what we're going to find, what we're going to experiment with, but we believe the process is going to be able to help us make some really, really big, valuable changes that are often small but huge impact. So I love that that keeps coming through. Claire?
So just for the your colleagues that graduated from Lead for Leaders this week as well, because there is a lot of work there, and it's just really to hear, I suppose, for the people that are listening in, but also the people in the room that haven't yet finished Lead for Leaders, what your thoughts are in terms of the benefits that brings, but also what advice you would give to people that are just struggling to get to the end of that journey at this point in time. Mike, I don't know.
Me, for example, it wasn't an easy journey. It's taken me a long while to get to where I got to today, but I'm glad I've got here. I feel very proud. In infection prevention and control, we utilise the Leeds improvement methodology on a daily basis, and we've got good engagement from the rest of the team. Everything that includes admin, the nursing team, and we all work together, and we even include our microbiology colleagues into the process as well.
Brilliant.
And it is, everybody just keep going. It's really, really good. The benefits far outweigh the possible things that you think that, it's really hard to do.
Mike?
I think my experience mirrors Yvette's, really, that I got stuck on module 6 essentially, and I've probably been utilising a lot of the tools within module 6 for probably a year. And some of it is about just actually getting over the line with this and persevering, because the benefit, as you've described, in terms of the clarity. So we've done ours around cancer performance and just getting some clarity about what are the key actions that we know will help support improving cancer performance across the organisation, and supporting the CSUs to deliver improved cancer performance. So we've been developing the tools in the production board, particularly around that process for the last year. So it's not been lost time. I think, essentially quite a lot of it was just about, writing it up, reflecting upon it, and seeing how we can constantly improve it for the future.
It's a really worthwhile course. It's very hard work. It was sometimes gruelingly hard work on Sunday. But I think for me, a lot of the techniques were new to me, were interesting. Just simple things like sit-up reduction, how to make something that's dependent upon other people easy for them to do. It doesn't always work, because it does rely upon other people responding. But also, I think a lot of the techniques I realised I turned them around on myself. What's my standard work? Am I doing it to a good level? What's my sit-up reduction? How can I improve what I'm doing? And I think one of the biggest things that's really helped in the team just around the corner, because we look after Bexley Wings, we've got a pretty nifty production board. It's really helpful to track where we're going, where we're not going. Ironically, I want to create a barriers board, but I'm so got up in work, it's a barrier to doing it. But you see what I mean? Because there are barriers that you could see it all the time, but then sometimes it's hard to track them. They often come up time and time again. So I do want to do a barriers board to see if someone, we always hit that barrier, well that's a new one. How do we deal with that? And use a lot of the tools. So I did enjoy the course. I recommend it. It's really worthwhile. I met a lot of great people with similar things that they're going through the same with me. you heard some new insights about what affects other people and how they're applying the tools. But I have to say, yeah, Module 6 took me about 8 months. It's just so busy, but I enjoyed it. It's worthwhile. I definitely recommend it.
Well, and this is our management method. It's not going away. This is the way we are going to carry on getting things done around here. So I know we talk about how Lean for Leaders is onerous, but actually if it's the investment necessary to help us change from the way I used to manage my work to the way that I now need to manage my work, it's got to require, that's such a fundamental shift, it's got to require us to be able to invest in it and make that move. So my plea to those of you that graduated today, please make sure that you are thinking, just as you were describing, Rob, how are you helping, how do you keep building on what you've learned, and how do you help others take on board what you now know and know works. So this is our management method. This is the way we are. We want the whole organisation to be operating. You people just happen to be at the forefront of helping us realise the benefits of it. So thank you on that note.
Yeah.